Hey everybody, this is Rykard here again, and welcome to my next narrated Pokemon Wi-Fi battle. Today's battle is an underused match against an opponent by the name of MVWhite25, and I just basically wanted to make an underused match where I brought some interesting guys that I haven't really gotten the chance to use since I Pokegen them. But Porygon 2, Claydol, and Cofagrigus are kind of my defensive core if you want to think of it that way. I've never used Porygon 2 before, so I figured it would be a good opportunity to use it. And obviously, Claydol can also set up rocks and spin them away if I need to. As for the Azumarill, that's probably the most interesting set on this team. It is a Perish trapping one with Whirlpool and Perish Song as well as Aqua Jet, so it can retain some revenge killing power while also being a Perish trapper. And I'm also using a Dragon Dance Scrafty and a pretty standard Nidoking. But with that, let's just jump right into it right now and see how I end up handling my opponent's team. So I decided to lead off with my Nidoking while my opponent led off with his Darmanitan. Now, knowing Darmanitans are typically scarfed and that Nidoking will not be able to take a hit from this thing, I have to switch out right away and decide to go into my Porygon 2 to basically sponge whatever hit he goes for. He ends up going for an Earthquake though, obviously trying to hit my Nidoking super effectively, but that's really good for my Porygon 2 because I don't have to deal with taking a stab, Sheer Force boosted Flare Blitz, which is really nice. But seeing as I really have no better option at this point, I just go for a Discharge, get a little bit of damage off of the Snorlax, but I go into my Cofagrigus to hopefully be immune to whatever normal move he goes for, which he went for return right there. Now on the following turn, obviously I do pack the Hidden Power Fighting, and I know that Snorlax is a pretty specially defensive guy, and I knew it probably wasn't going to do that much damage, but I figured I might as well go for it, because if he did go into Umbreon, which I did see before, I could have potentially got burned myself if I went for the Will-O-Wisp on the thing. But knowing that I have to switch out here because I obviously have a pretty bad matchup against Umbreon with my Cofagrigus, I go into my Porygon 2 to hopefully get off a Toxic on it. But as you saw right there, I actually just traced the Synchronize and Toxic him back, which is really good for me because that basically saved me a turn as I switched in. Now, seeing as I know that this Umbreon really can't do too much to my Nidoking unless he just goes for Foul Play or something, I just switch right out into it right here. And then as he goes into his Snorlax, I figured I could live a hit, so I might as well just go for damage. And luckily for me, he actually goes for Pursuit here, which actually shows me that this is actually a banded Snorlax, so that means I'm going to have to play around it a little bit differently. But that means I can also stay in for another turn and go for a second Earth Power as he switches into his Kingdra and get off a huge amount of damage on that, which is really good for me. Now, me expecting this Kingdra to be a physical variant, I go into my Cofagrigus to hopefully take the Waterfall or boosted Waterfall if you went for Dragon Dance right there, but unfortunately he's actually a special variant and went for Draco Meteor, so I do have to switch out here to try and keep my Cofagrigus alive just a little bit longer. I go out into my Porygon 2 since now that he's -2, he's probably not going to be doing a lot of damage to it. Luckily for me though, he does miss a second Draco Meteor even though it wouldn't have done a lot, and I'm able to just recover off on the following turn as he switches into his Snorlax. Now, me knowing that it's banded now means that I can probably wear it down pretty easily if I just put a Toxic on this thing. So I just go for that right here as he goes for Pursuit again, expecting me to maybe switch out because obviously before my Discharge did like nothing. But I just wanted to get damage on this thing, so I just leave it in, go for the Toxic, and then the following turn, expecting him to switch out because he locked himself into Pursuit, I just go for another Discharge, which is good for me because he actually went out into his Kingdra and I'm able to KO it. Now here he goes into his Snorlax, and me being at a very low range of health now, expecting the Pursuit finally to actually kill me, so I just go for Recover instead as he goes for Return. However, as you see right there, Return did like nothing, and I'm actually at a higher range of health than I was before the Return even hit me, even with the poison damage taken into consideration. But here, since I switched out into my Cofagrigus last time, I figured I would just go out into Claydol this time to change it up a bit, and obviously the Cofagrigus switch seemed a little obvious there. So I do go out into my Claydol, and I'm actually able to set up my Stealth Rock right now, which is really good. I didn't really have a better option to go for on this turn because Claydol can't really hurt Umbreon too badly, but I do take a Toxic in the process, which is going to be annoying because it's going to wear down my Claydol progressively, but I'm not going to leave it in too long here, as you can see, because I'm going to switch out right away into my Nidoking, expecting him to not really be able to do much to it. Since he has Toxic, if he had Heal Bell as his last move, I knew I was just safe bringing it in. But as I saw him go for Wish right here, I knew the one thing that he had to pass it out to was Snorlax. So I do have to go for the Earth Power right here. And luckily for me, I'm able to actually take out the Snorlax before the Wish heals it, which is really good because this Pokemon is a very bulky and powerful attacker when you put it with a banded set. But he goes out into his Darmanitan here again, and me obviously expecting the Earthquake a second time, decide to go out into my Claydol this time because I obviously will be immune to it with the Levitate ability. Now here, I actually pull a double switch on him because I know that he was going to go out into Umbreon. So I actually pulled a double switch right here, went out into my Scrafty, which has a horrible nickname that I'm completely embarrassed by. But anyways, knowing that this would be a really good matchup for me. Now I could go for Dragon Dance here, but I don't want to risk my Scrafty losing its Lumberry or him just going for Wish, so I just go right for the Drain Punch on this first turn, even though he does bring in his Hitmontop. It gets off an Intimidate, meaning that this Drain Punch really isn't going to do a lot of damage, as you saw right there. But seeing as the close combat is pretty obvious right here, or at least the Rapid Spin, I do go out into my my Nidoking to obviously take whatever hit. Normally defensive Hitmontops aren't too heavily physically invested, so I figured I could take whatever hit he wants to go for and then threaten him out with an Earth Power after he got the special defense drop from the close combat. But as you can see right here, he actually switches out into his Umbreon, and I actually get a critical hit on this Earth Power, which honestly didn't matter because of the poison damage canceling out leftovers, so that would have just been 2 Earth Powers anyway, so it just kind of sped things up a little bit. But here, he brings out his Darmanitan again, and me now expecting the U-turn or something, I just go out into my Cofagrigus. Luckily, I actually predict that right, which is really good for me because now he's going to be at a very low range of health next time he comes back in because of the Stealth Rock damage, and he brings out his Raikou. Now, me not wanting this thing to set up or sub-Calm Minding because I don't know what kind of set this is yet, I just stay in and go for the Nightshade to prevent that from ever happening, but he just kills me outright with a Thunderbolt. But judging by my options right here, I figured I could live a HP Ice if he had it, so I just go out into my Claydol to threaten it out with an Earth Power, which is really good for me. I force him out, and he goes into his Hitmontop, which is actually a really good matchup for me, even though this is kind of the best switch he had at this point, which is kind of cool. That means I'm in a really good position because I obviously also pack this super effective Psychic on this Hitmontop. However, he is going to get a bit of damage off on me, including the poison damage that's going to be racking up over the course of the couple turns with his close combat, but I'm able to easily take out this Hitmontop with a combination of a Psychic and then another Earth Power on the following turn. So at this point, I'm just in a really good position. There's really not a lot he has really been threatening me by, so I feel really comfortable after I take out this Hitmontop, and I have a few guys on the team that I still even haven't brought out yet, like the Azumarill and things of that nature. I still have a Scrafty at full health, so I'm feeling really good. But he does go out into his Darmanitan here, and I know that U-turn is really obvious here, possibly to just get a lot of damage, so I just switch out into my Porygon 2 to take whatever hit he wants to go for. However, he just outright goes for Flare Blitz, I guess because he realized he was at a really low range of health, so it wouldn't matter anyway. But I do have my Azumarill with Aqua Jet on it, so I'm able to threaten him out here. If he switches out, it's dead. If he stays in, it's dead. So it was a win-win situation for me. He does go into his Raikou here, though, and as you can see, since I'm not really a very physically invested Azumarill, this Aqua Jet doesn't do as much damage as it potentially could have. But me predicting the Thunderbolt, or just assuming I was going to die from an HP Ice in the next turn, it didn't really matter. I just got into my Nidoking to sack it. However, here he goes for Calm Mind, and then learns that he's actually a Choice Specs Raikou, but you're going to see in a moment why that doesn't actually matter at all, because if he was at +1 from the Calm Mind, which he would have just got, he would have basically been at the same attack power as he is being Specs, which would have taken out my Nidoking, as you can see right here. And on the following turn, as I switch into my Claydol, you'll see that I actually just lived this Hidden Power Ice at +1 with 2 HP, and I'm actually able to KO with an Earth Power on the final turn, giving me the victory in the match. If he did not have the Choice Specs item, I still would have had Scrafty left to take whatever hit he wanted to go for. Scrafty, being naturally bulky, can take a +1 Thunderbolt if it needs to. I could have went for Dragon Dance and then Drain Punch on the next turn, so it would have worked out in my favor regardless at that point, even if I didn't live that the Hidden Power Ice with my Claydol. But that's just how things happen sometimes, and you gotta just check your items to make sure. But anyways, that is it for this video, everyone, so I hope you enjoyed this UU match. It was running a little bit of a slower pace than normal, just because I had a lot to say about this and a lot was going on in my head as the match was progressing and as we were playing it out. But thank you MVWhite25 for the battle, and thank you all for watching, and as always, take care, goodbye, and I will see you all next time.